global cybercrime is projected to cost $10.5 trillion annually, according to Cybersecurity Ventures.
And while sophisticated crime organizations target corporations and governments, individuals also succumb to all kinds of scams and hacks. Joining us to educate is Eric ONeill. He's a former FBI counterintelligence operative and a cybersecurity expert. He's also author of the new book, Spies, Lies, and Cybercrime, Cybersecurity Tactics to Outsmart Hackers and Disarm Scammers. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. Such an important topic and very excited to get into it. But before we do get into personal vigilance, you have such an interesting background. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your first book and your first career before getting into cyber.
Certainly. Carrie, Stephanie, it's great to be on NTD. My background started in the FBI. I was an undercover operative. My job was in counterterrorism and counterintelligence. So counterterrorism, catching terrorists. Counterintelligence is catching spies. So I was an FBI spy hunter. And my final case in the FBI was to go undercover to catch a spy named Robert Hansen, who was a 25-year veteran of the FBI, who ended up being the top Russian mole in the entire US intelligence community. And
Wow.
my final case, because I left the FBI after, was to go undercover in the most unique case the FBI had ever run. I was sent into FBI headquarters as myself to catch a spy. And I don't think we'll ever have a case quite like that. And I managed to accomplish what was finding a unicorn, getting the smoking gun that led to his arrest and an easy conviction.
A full 007 kind of operation.
Something like that,
It's
yeah.
amazing. Wow.
You must have so many insights, and with all of that experience, what led you to commit yourself and work on cybersecurity?
Well, you know, the work that I was doing with Hansen, with the overt job, the covert job was to find information and evidence that would lead to his arrest. The overt job was we were building cybersecurity for the FBI, and I've always had my hands on a keyboard. So as I left the FBI, I practiced law and national security. I founded my own company that does competitive intelligence, and then just recently founded a company that does cybersecurity. I've always kept my mind on what is the most damaging thing for people, and especially as I'm lecturing and talking and I'm on stage. And right now that is cybercrime. I mean, you open this by saying that cybercrime is costing the population of the world about 10.5 trillion. That's actually underreported because most companies don't always report. It's really around 14 trillion this year. By next year, it could be 18 trillion. So if you were to count cybercrime, the dark web, right? Money that's flowing into the pockets of these new cybercrime syndicates as a gross domestic product. Say the dark web was a place, which it sort of is. Right now, cybercrime would be the third largest economy on earth.
Wow.
Absolutely. So it
US
would go
and
the
China.
US and then China, and then cybercrime, dark web cybercrime is already more than Germany and Japan put together.
That's unbelievable. You've done a great job of outlining the scope of the problem, in its totality. But what about the scope of the problem for individuals, not for sophisticated corporations and governments, et cetera?
Exactly, Carrie. That is why I wrote the book. So this book, if you're a chief information security officer at a company, you're going to pick it up and you're going to learn from it. But what I really wanted to do is create a book that reads like a true crime thriller. And teaches you, as you're reading, all the ways that cyber criminals are coming after us. And what I did is I went back to my origins at the FBI, how I learned counterintelligence, the FBI Academy. So you learn about deception, impersonation, infiltration, confidence schemes, exploitation and destruction. I call it diced, with stories about how cyber criminals are coming after you and me. It's very personal. We have this misconception that what criminals, not just cyber criminals, but cyber spies, what they're doing is using computers to somehow get in their computer. They're not. They're using computers as a way to access us, to fool us into handing over our data.
So paint a picture for us. What are some of the top kinds of scams that you'd see?
So right now, one of the biggest scams going around is using AI in a very clever way to deceive families. So you might get a call, and I'm hearing this from people as I'm talking about the book. I'm hearing this story, the same story or variation from people all over the country. You get a call from your daughter or your sister or your mother, right? And it's frantic. I got into a car wreck and I'm here in prison, I hit someone, they're really hurt, and I need your help. And the next person who gets on the phone is the public defender, who says, if you don't pay bail quickly, then your loved one, your daughter, your sister, right, is going to spend the next week in jail, and this is the only phone call she gets, right? So this is a huge scam. What attackers are doing is they're learning about you by going through your social media. They find someone that's connected to you, like, say, your daughter. It's usually a daughter or a son. They're calling the parents or they're calling the grandparents, and they're using AI to create a clone of the voice. So you're hearing someone that you believe is your family member, but it's not. It's just AI fooling you, and they create that pressure situation. You feel like, oh, I better pay quickly, and it's usually send a wire, right? You think you're sending it to a defense attorney, and then you finally get in touch with the person, and you find out that it was all a scam. It was a complete scam, and families are losing thousands of dollars to this and many different variations of the scam. And that's a way that attackers are using this time-honored tradition of espionage in a modern environment to fool us into, there isn't even a single bit of code. It's just fooling us into sending our money right into their wallets.
So what could people do to be vigilant that these scams are targeting them?
Well, the number one thing that people have to do is be aware of the scam. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. That's one of the reasons I take stages all over the world and talk about this. Awareness is what leads to knowing the skills to defend against it. So you get that call. And what I've been telling families is have a code word. In my family, we use the first line from a silly poem, right? No one's going to guess that. And I can say, you can even say, what's the code word? That's the world we live in now with deepfakes. And if they can't say the code word, then maybe it's a fake. And because this is growing, when cyber criminals find that stuff works, they keep replicating it, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger. And you've probably seen, if you're scrolling through social media, what's happening with, say, Sora 2 and these different AI video creation channels where anyone can create an incredibly deceptive deepfake. You're seing Mr. Rogers, right, from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And I'm Gen X, so I remember watching that show. But doing all sorts of crazy things, and it looks hyper real. It's not. And if anyone can use AI to create deepfakes, and cyber criminals are doing it. So we need to be able to not succumb to the pressure of the moment, to take a step back, to analyze the situation, and find the scam.
Now let's look at what advice you might have for some of the other vulnerable people in our lives, the children, elderly folks. How can they learn to adapt in this cybercrime world?
Yeah, Stephanie, that is a great question because the most vulnerable are the most targeted. So children are targeted because they have pristine credit. Right? Your child has never gotten a credit card. They have a perfect credit rating, right? And so attackers will go after them for identity theft, but they will also go after them for, I've written an entire chapter on exploitation. There are just terrible, mean people out there, and they will go after your children. They'll do it in video game chat rooms. They'll do it on Discord. They'll do it however they can access them, Instagram, social media. And what they'll do is they will become their friends, and they will get them to put themselves in a compromising situation. With teenagers, it can sometimes be send me a naked picture. And then what they do is they exploit them. They say, you've done this. I know your entire family. I'm going to send this out to everyone you know if you don't send me money. Go get your parents' credit card. Go buy gift cards and read them out to me. They find different ways to get this. Get an Apple Pay account. Send me money. And it can be devastating to a child. It can cause depression. They can feel that they're being cyberbullied. And in some cases, it's led to teen suicide. So it's terrible. And with elderly people, they can get fooled really quickly by the grandparent scheme. Grandma, I'm trapped. I'm in a hotel. Someone stole my wallet and phone. I'm using a friend's phone. I need you to wire me money right away. And they've also been very susceptible to finance and romance fraud, right? Romance fraud is where someone who's alone and lonely believes they've fallen in love with someone online, and there's always some crisis. I crashed my car. I just need some help. I want to come visit you. Wire me some money. Or finance fraud. Invest in this new scheme. and they will actually show them websites where their $1,000, their test investment, is now gone up 300%. Now, and I tell a story in a book about a pensioner who invested his entire pension with a fraudulent account. And when he said, I'd like to pull some money out to take my family on vacation, the attacker just disappears. And he was left penniless.
Well, we appreciate so much you sharing these tips. If nothing else, the code word. What a genius and simple thing to do.
And there's much more in your book, which is, I'm looking forward to
Yes,
reading.
the answers to how to defend against all of this, you know, primarily don't give in to the pressure, think before you act, and all of the different cybersecurity strategies that someone can use to protect themselves in the first place, it's all in there.
Eric O'Neill, thank you so much for joining. The book is Spies, Lies, Cybercrime, Cybersecurity Tactics to Outsmart Hackers and Disarm Scammers. Such a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.